And one of the things that I came up with was this concept for how to start a side hustle with nothing. And so I find out about this business just through scrolling through Instagram, a private car rental business. So I rent my car out to this nice older lady, wanted to start doing delivery driving. And in the first month, I make $1,200 off a car that was just sitting in my garage. I couldn't believe it. And I was also confused because I was like, why is she renting? She should just be able to go out and get a car. Hey, this seems a lot more expensive than you going and buying a car. Why do you want to rent my car? And she's like, well, I don't have good credit. I don't have any savings. No one will loan me a car. I can't get credit to buy a car. I don't have a credit card, so I can't rent a car from the rental car company. You're the only person that will trust me to rent me a car to go out and make money.
I could have been so set on going to the country because that's where my family are going to move to. But instead I came here and I felt like I have to live here. And I did a complete U-turn, and it's the best thing I've ever done in my entire life.
When you look at a river doesn't flow in a straight line from the top of the mountain to the ocean. That's not how rivers work. They're always weaving in and out of obstacles, and that's how it works. And I think for a lot of us in life, unfortunately, we start weaving and then we get to that obstacle and we just stop. Well, we know there's an end goal. We just don't, like you said, we don't know how to get in. We think because there's an obstacle here, a big giant obstacle, that it's not meant for us, or we can't get there. We can't do it. And it's like you said, it's a diversion. It's just saying, hey, flow this way a little bit. This is the way you're supposed to go, because that's not what you want. Isn't even over there. You thought it was, but it's not. It's over here. If you just go that way, you'll get to where you're trying to go.
Just quickly, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I started 4 years ago, and since then I've had over 1 million downloads. I get 5,000 downloads per month, and I've had over 200 different guests. So a massive thank you to everyone who still listens. If you could please do me a favour, if you could rate and review the podcast, that would be amazing, because it helps get the podcast out to new, conscious people like yourself. And my goal is to awaken as many people around the world. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's YesKingOliver, should you wish to see what I get up to on my day-to-day moments. Back to the episode.
So last time we spoke, I was living at home with my parents, and I may have told you that when I went to Portugal, I did LSD for the first time, and I was out in another world for 8 hours, and the voice in my head told me that I need to move out, and I know to listen to these downloads when they come. So now 6 months later, I have moved out, and I'm living in a conscious community, which means every day it's like living at a festival. There's a program where you would have yoga, breath work, ice baths and saunas, community eating. We will have ecstatic dance. We will have sound bath therapy. We will have kirtan chanting. And every day is literally like a festival. And I never knew how much I needed to be with people. Growing up, I had no friends, so I'd always just been my entrepreneur self, all about me, just going out to get what I want. What can I take from the world? And since being here with people that I love spending time with, who also love me, for the first time ever, I'm realizing that I'm having to reprogram myself, which is what can I give to people rather than what can I take? Because growing up, had no friends. I come here, there is an abundance of friends and people. And I was so close to moving out by myself. And I went to an event here and I'm like, holy shit, you can live here. And I did a complete U-turn. And now I can't even imagine a world where I was living in my house by myself in the middle of the country versus this life. And it's just the way of the universe really knows what's right for you. And, you know, I could have been so set on going to the country because that's where my family are going to move to. But instead I came here and I felt like I have to live here. And I did a complete U-turn, and it's the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I just trusted this feeling of, you're not quite ready to move to the country yet. You're supposed to be here.
I love it. And it's so funny that you like, I think you liked one of my posts or something happened. And it was the perfect time. We have been trying to get back on a podcast for a few months now. And it just wasn't the right timing. It wasn't the right timing. And then all of a sudden, when you reached out, some of the most incredible things had just happened. And I was like, oh, I have to get on. This is going to just blow his mind because you're absolutely right. It's like when you do get in tune and you are listening and you are paying attention, uh, everything just comes together. The universe just puts things in your path, and you end up taking generally not the path that you think you would have taken, but it ends up being the right one. And then it's really mind blowing how it all comes together.
So this story that you want to say, I'm dying to hear it.
So, all right. So, you said something really profound here about giving and about how, you go out in the world, you take. And then, but when you switch to this mode of giving, I think that type of selflessness also then attracts more to you. When you're putting out, then the universe is like, okay, great, you're giving, so let me give to you. And so, over the past year, some of the listeners that may have listened to our previous podcast know I started this company of several years ago and was able to really grow it, and all this amazing things happened. Well, at the end of 2023, we ended up having to wind down the business. And so as 2024 came around, the whole business had to wind down. And the reason we did that, it was because the business was no longer profitable. We had scaled it up really big, but it had gotten to the point where we weren't going to be able to scale it much further, and we weren't profitable. We couldn't raise any more money. And this was devastating for me because this was my whole life. I had gone through all of these ups and downs and pains and struggle to build this business up, and got on the Shark Tank and got Snoop Dogg to help me and got into retail stores and all these amazing things. And for it to end, it was very tough. But during that time, I told myself that, hey, I want to go out and share this story of what I was able to do, what I was able to create, and the stories that I was able to tell along the way. And I think that can help other people go and live their journey, especially when it pertains to entrepreneurship. So all of last year, I started speaking and traveling. I was going all across the country, just sharing these stories. And it was really touching people. And then I would get referrals. People that would see me at one event would hire me to come do another event. And so at the beginning of this year, I decided, okay, I need to start growing my social media channels. I need to start, putting out even more information and more content. And I decided my social media, rather than speaking to a lot of times I talk to corporate leaders and conferences that are really expensive, I wanted to talk to just regular people who are just getting started, trying to build something or take a chance or grow. And so I started talking about entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I came up with was this concept for how to start a side hustle with nothing. Just how do you start a side hustle business with nothing? And can you start a side hustle? These people on the internet are always sharing, oh, you can do this and make money. You can do this and quit your job. You'll do this for 2 weeks and be happy. I'm like, okay, what if I try out one of these side hustle businesses and we'll see if it actually works? And I can show people that, hey, it works, it doesn't work, but you can do this. And so I find out about this business just through scrolling through Instagram, a private car rental business. So kind of like Turo in the US. I think it's called Hire Cars, what you guys have in the UK, in Europe. And, where you just rent your car out to strangers. But the niche here was, instead of using a platform, you rent it out to delivery drivers, people who are delivering food, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, DoorDash, Uber Eats, all of these like service providers, because they don't have a car, they want to have a business. You rent them the vehicle weekly basis. And so I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I have an extra car at home. So I try it out, post it on Facebook, get 100 replies. And I'm like, just from a Facebook marketplace post, I rent my car out to this nice older lady, wanted to start doing delivery driving. And in the first month, I make $1,200 off a car that was just sitting in my garage. I couldn't believe it. And I was also confused because I was like, why is she renting? She should just be able to go out and get a car, buy a car. And so I asked her, I said, hey, this seems a lot more expensive than you going and buying a car. Why do you want to rent my car? And she's like, well, I don't have good credit. I don't have any savings. No one will loan me a car. I can't get credit to buy a car. I don't have a credit card, so I can't rent a car from the rental car company. You're the only person that will trust me to rent me a car to go out and make money. And it just was unbelievable to me that no one was catering to this huge swath of people that are trying to go out, make some money for their families, and all they need is a car, and they just don't have the means to get one. But if they have a car, they can have a job. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to buy some more cars. So I take all my savings and I buy 4 more cars. And then I rent all those cars out. And then I was just like, and you had reached out to me around then, but I was so busy and focused. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, man, this business, I just make a post on Facebook. I have dozens of people text message me every day. Do you have a car? Do you have a car? I'm like, my only problem here is I need more vehicles, but I just don't have cash to buy a whole bunch of vehicles. And so I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to get access quickly to $100,000. Right. And now I don't have any money and I need $100,000. Over the past year, I had used a lot of my savings. I used the rest of my savings on these cars. And so I'm like, okay. So I go out, I start applying for credit cards under the business. And this huge issue comes up. About a year ago, I got one of those letters in the mail saying that some company had lost my social security number, all my private information. And so I put a fraud alert on my credit to make sure that no one could open up any accounts in my name. So when I go and apply for these cards, they're all getting declined because they're like fraud alert, fraud alert, fraud alert. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. I'm not going to even be able to do this because I had this fraud alert and I didn't realize I had it on. So I turn it off, go back to my bank who I had previously had a credit card with my previous business. And they're asking me to submit all this documentation. And I already have an account. And they're still sending me letters saying, we think there's fraud. Someone's trying to open an account. And I was so frustrated because I'm like, here I have this great idea and this great opportunity. And the universe just brought me this idea. And then I got these cars and now they're all rented out. And all I need is access to some capital. And now I'm being blocked. And it's not working. And this isn't fair. And at that moment, I almost wanted to just say, you know what? You're just not going to be able to scale this business the way you want. You just go slow. And that's just all it is to it. But then my fiance, he says to me, he's like, Akeem, he's like, you're going to get approved. You just need to wait. He's like, it's just going to take more time. And you just got to wait. And I had this great banker at the bank who was just really trying to get this happen. He's like, I just send this and we're going to send this. He's like, well, let's just apply for two different cars in these businesses and we'll just see what happens and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So week 1 goes by, nothing. Week 2 goes by, nothing. And I'm panicking and I'm nervous. And at a certain point, I just said, you know what? Whatever's supposed to happen will happen. And I just decided to stop focusing on it at all. I started focusing on something totally different, didn't even worry about it, wasn't even thinking about it anymore. I said, I've given it to the universe, and I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's been working. I've been meeting all the right people, mechanics and installers, and all the right people have been coming into my life for this business to work. I was like, I'm just going to just leave it over there and focus on something else. And so while I was no longer focusing on it, I get an email. And the email says, we've approved your credit card for $15,000 with 0% interest for 12 months. So no interest rate, 12 months, load up the card, don't have to pay it off. I'm like, okay, great, but that's only $15K. I need 100 so I can buy 20 cards. So the banker calls me. He says, hey, they approved your card. He's like, if you come into the bank, we'll move the credit from your old business Flipstick to the new business. I said, are you serious? He's like, yeah, just come in and we'll do it. So we go in and he moves it over. And now I went from $15,000 of available credit to $55,000 of available credit. And I'm like, wow, I didn't get to my goal, but I got halfway there. I'll be able to buy half the cars. I can buy 10 cars. This is going to be great. This is a life-changing opportunity. And I was just so excited and so happy. And I'm just like, oh, this is fantastic. So this was last week, right? And I'm just smiling, and I can't believe this is all working out. And so then 45 minutes ago, Oliver, I can't make the shit up. 45 minutes ago, I get another phone call, and it's the banker. And I'm like, well, you already got all this stuff set up. What could he possibly be calling me for? He's like, hey, Akeem, I was just looking through your account and everything, and it turns out with all the back and forth and the fraud stuff being on there and all the confusion, they approved the other credit card too. And I said, are you serious? And he's like, I said, for how much?
45.
He said, another 55. I said, you are fucking lying. He's like, we have you approved for $110,000 in credit at 0% interest for 12 months.
Holy shit. So what's your next play now?
So the next call I'm going to make is and this is another synchronicity thing where it's just unbelievable, right? The reason I even took a chance on this business was I had a mechanic I had met years ago. I don't know how I met this guy, but he was so cheap. He would do everything just dirt cheap, fix my cars. And so I went to go see him before all this stuff started. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business, but I'm gonna need a mechanic that can work on these used cars that I buy, fix them, make sure they work well so I can get them to renters. And he's like, yeah, I'll help you out with it. And so once I told him I wanted to buy cars, he's like, hey, I know a guy who's a dealer and he has his dealer's license and he can get you into these auctions that are exclusively for car dealers. And so this car dealer guy's like, hey, I meet him and he gets me into these car auctions so I can buy these cars really, really cheap, like under $5,000 for quality used car. And I also tell him like, hey, I'm trying to get this credit line and can I buy the cars through you with this credit line? He's like, of course. He's like, you can buy them through me. We'll get them. I'll help you pick out the cars, blah, blah, blah. So now my next step literally is to hit the auction. We're going to go get the cars. He already knows. I told him once I had the 50,000 approved, he's like, all right, here's the auctions we should go to. Here's the cars you should get. And I mean, when I tell you so many people have come into the right space, like I needed someone to install these GPS trackers so I could track all the cars and be able to see them. And my mechanic introduces me to a guy who does it really, really cheap for me, installs that. And then he's like, hey, we should install dash cams. And so he installs the dash cams for me. And it's just like, this started, Oliver, 60 days ago. 60 days ago, this was nothing. And in 60 days, it's come into a full-fledged, profitable business overnight for something that I literally was doing just to show people you can start a business from something, from nothing. And it's just like, I was talking to my mentor. I have a mentor, and he's a big, he runs a big venture capital fund where he gives businesses millions and millions of dollars, way bigger than anything I would do. And I'm telling him about it. And he's the one who told me to get on social media too. He was like, you need to start focusing on your social media. And I tell him about this and he's just tickled. He's laughing. He's like, this is really unbelievable. And this is the first time in my life, and I've started several businesses. You know, I speak and I promote myself as a speaker, and I have Flipstick and we advertise. I've always been trying to promote and convince people like to buy something and to sell something and the marketing and buy this, buy this, buy this. This is the first time ever, Oliver, that I've had a business where I've not had to convince anyone to buy anything. I literally say I have it and I have more customers that I can even serve. And it was just, I'm like, this just unbelievable. Really unbelievable. And I just like, man, it started with a whisper.
So right now you put ads on Facebook saying, hey, I've got a car for rent, hit me up. People then will hit you up and say, hey, how much to rent the car a week? Let's just say you buy the car for 5K, you rent the car out per month to a delivery driver, specifically for say £300. Within 4 months, for example, you've got your money back and now you're making free money forever.
That's exactly right.
Works.
It's like it takes 10 months to pay. It takes 10 weeks, 10 weeks to pay off the vehicle. 10 weeks of renting it out. And then it's just free money. You just do the maintenance on the car, make sure it's safe, make sure it runs. I mean, it really, I unbelievable. And what's great is I've shared all this information for free on my social media page from literally start to this moment. And it's just
So,
like, it's crazy.
so are these people collecting your car within, say, 20 miles, or is it across the country?
No, we're just doing local only for now. Eventually, when we get really big, we may branch out to other cities and stuff like that and scale it up. But for now, it's just a nice, small-ish little business in our local town. So I think I'll probably try to grow this out to about 200, 250 vehicles in our city and then expand.
So
And
specifically for
here's
delivery drivers.
specifically delivery, and someone else can rent it too, but we only rent by the week. So it's no daily rentals for people traveling or anything like that. No, this is for people that need a car to work because they're
And
trying to earn money.
and what documents do you need? And do you have a contract that they sign? And what if they run off and you never see them again? Do they pay deposit?
Yeah. So the way I have it set up today is yes, they have a contract. I'm not doing deposits today. I probably will start doing them as we scale up and get bigger. But I just wanted it to be quick and fast. But they pay in advance. They pay per week. And the reason we don't do any type of deposit or have to have a credit card on file or anything like that is we have these GPS trackers that are in the car that allow us to remote turn off the car. So at any time we can just turn it off and it won't start, and we can go collect the vehicle if they haven't paid or if they try to leave the city or something like that.
Hang on, you can control the car even though it's like petrol or diesel.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a
What are these
company,
called?
it's a huge multinational conglomerate. It's called Spirion. They have a ton of different products for vehicles and vehicle tracking. The particular product we use is called Gold Star. It's called Gold Star, and I'm pretty sure they're global. And so for literally, and I learned this through a course I took online from a guy who was already doing this in another city. But basically, for $100, you get the GPS tracker and 3 years of cell phone coverage to track the vehicle. And then you just have to get it installed. And so it can remote stop the vehicle, tells you where it's at all times. You can see how fast they're driving. It gives all the different details about it.
And what's the age of the vehicle, like the oldest age of the vehicle for it to be able to work with cutting off the engine, essentially?
Oh, it'll work with any car. Pretty
What?
much any vehicle, because they have to be wired in. That's why you have to get like an electrician, someone who knows what they're doing, because they wired into the starter. I don't know exactly how all the install works, but yeah, they have to wire it in. But pretty much any car, like it's once they switched over to what's called the OBD tool, which I want to say is like 1992 is when they did it in the US. I'm not sure where they did it everywhere else around the world, but pretty much any car that's made in the last 20 years, 25 years, you can do it with.
So the
And
minute they
even
don't
older in some
pay,
cases.
the minute they don't drop the car off, when their day's up, their week's up, then you go collect wherever that GPS location is pinging that car.
Yeah, well, they bring the car back. But here's the crazy thing, Oliver. I have yet to have a single car come back.
So
People are
they
just
keep renting
keeping
it.
it. They just keep renewing every week like a subscription. I've not had one vehicle come back yet. And it's because, remember, they're renting it to work. So until they get to the point where they can buy their own car and they save up their money to buy their own vehicle, they'll keep renting ours because it's cheaper than any other option that they have access to.
So what is the contract and what does the contract say essentially? How legit, descriptive, proper is it?
Yeah, no, I've had it pretty much locked down solid. So basically, all the standard things you would get if you were renting a car from a major like Hertz or any enterprise, any big multinational rental car company. That basically says, hey, liability is on the driver. You have to bring it back. Don't damage the vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a pretty locked tight contract. Just to make sure. But here's the other thing, because we don't have a deposit, they don't have a credit card on file. Truth be told, if they damage the vehicle, there isn't much recourse. But these vehicles aren't expensive vehicles. It's not like we have $35,000, $50,000 cars that, could be damaged. These are two, three, four, $5,000 cars. So there's not as much risk, when it comes to like aesthetic damage to the vehicle. But there is that risk that you take, and that's why it's so important that I know a great body shop that can fix the cars for me. I have a great mechanic that can fix the vehicles for me, so that way when something does happen, we can just fix it up, put it back on the road.
And they set up a standing order every week to pay.
Yep, that's exactly right. So they pay every week, and it's I think for me, this business, it's not even really about the business, right? Because you could do this doing almost anything. But I think to me, it's about having the mindset and having your heart in the right place to find the thing that will be easiest for you. Because see, this business wouldn't have worked if I didn't have a great mechanic, because I would have spent a fortune going to, a big shop that would have charged me a lot of money to fix everything. But because I knew a great mechanic that could do it really inexpensively for me and prioritize me as a customer, it made all of this possible. Without having him, I wouldn't have had access to the dealer who got me the cars inexpensively. I wouldn't have access to the installer who can install the GPS trackers and the dash cams for me. So this business was perfect for me because of the connections that I had and were able to build. And I think that for anyone out there, particularly when you're thinking about going out on your own, starting a business, it doesn't matter what it is. Think about who you are, what your interests are, and then think about who you know, and then focus in on that, and then that's what works. I remember when I started my previous business, Flipstick, which was a phone accessory company that allowed you to stick your phone to any flat surface. The reason I started that business was my uncle, who is an engineer at NASA, told me about this adhesive that was based off the feet of geckos that was reusable that NASA had created. And I remember I was on a podcast years ago, and someone said to me, well, any of us could have done that if we had uncles that were engineers at NASA. And I'm like, you missed the whole point. This is just who I knew. I was like, but now, fast forward to this business, nothing to do with a NASA uncle. I just knew a mechanic. And so it's like, think about, I think a lot of people put restrictions and they say, oh, well, Jeff Bezos was able to create Amazon because he had blah, 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 blah. And Mark Zuckerberg was able to create Facebook because he had blah, 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 blah. And Sir Richard Branson was able to create Virgin because he had blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wait a minute. That's just what they had access to and what they were thinking about and who they knew and where they live. But you have all those same things. They just are different. But when you think that everyone else in the world that's done anything is somehow exceptional, you then diminish the capability within yourself. And so I think that for me is what's so profound about starting this brand new enterprise from nothing, is it just goes to show, like, anyone can follow their dreams and build something. Like, who I would love to hear from, Oliver, is this community that you're in. I don't know if you met them, but whoever like founded this community and kind of built this and like built all these structures and places where you can live, and like, how did they come up with that? Where were they that made them say, I'm going to start this? To me, it's just I love hearing those journeys. It's really remarkable.
I've got 3 questions. Can this be applied to a motorbike, like a moped scooter, in terms of
Oh, of
tracking and turning it
course.
off?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that tracker I
And
was telling you about, it works with any gas engine. If it's a gas engine and it has an electric starter, either a key or a push button or anything, yeah, for sure.
how about an electric bike, an e-bike?
Now, e-bike would be different. It'd be a little bit more difficult. So I know the product that I buy does not work for electric cars. So I would assume it doesn't work for electric bikes. However, what you probably could do is, if you went to the manufacturers in China who make the e-bikes, you could have them, because the e-bike already has a computer built into it, and a lot of them you can get GPS built in as well. They could probably build it into you, but you may have to order custom bikes to do it. That would probably be the only thing, is you may have to order custom bikes, but I'm not sure. But if you're interested in doing it, I'll connect you with my sales rep at that company, because they make products for semi trucks and all. They make tons of stuff for vehicles to track them. Like, that's their whole business. So I'll connect you with them, and who knows, they may have a product for you.
Man, like you're so in tune. And I'm in tune, and we are in tune, because this story is incredible. It's incredible, like surrendering and trusting and letting things unfold, and then letting things unfold, and the power of not having to sell, and instead it coming to you, and then
Mm,
you just have to supply. If it's a beautiful, if you can find something that people come to you for, and you just got to make a few calls and supply, that's the dream here. I'd say 90% of the world's trying to sell oil to a cafe, and it doesn't work. But things coming to
mm-hmm.
you where you just have to think creatively and think, who do you know? That's the next part of life. Jeff Bezos and everyone, they didn't necessarily go out and start trying to create something from scratch. Like, they knew the people. Like, Bill Gates had his mate who
Mm-hmm.
could build the computers, and I think Bill just sold them.
Absolutely.
Bill went and
That's
sold it.
exactly
His
right.
mate made it, and he gave him a cut. He worked with what he had, rather than trying to be this genius inventor creating something and going
That's
on Shark
exactly
Tank
right.
that people are like, yeah, it's fucking brilliant, but who the fuck's gonna buy it? No one even knows what it is. And at the end of the day, if it's about making money, then you got to find where people are buying and supply. And my dad always told me that. Nothing more easier to do in life to make money than to buy and sell.
Mm,
It goes back to thousands of years, just trading one thing for another. And people complicate it. And we're trying to do all this other shit online, and go back to the basics. Just find a demand and supply, and keep supplying until the demand runs out. And when it does, someone else will come. But what's beautiful is that when you are in an industry like that, there's other things that you now can supply, which you didn't know existed until you're there. You know,
mm,
um,
mm-hmm.
I'm sure eventually it will go into like e-bikes and stuff, and scooters and shit like that. So that is a profound story. And what's even more profound is that today you get the other call, the day that we booked the podcast. And to be honest, I stopped booking podcasts ages ago, and I looked at my calendar and you were there. And I'm like, when did you book? You must have clicked on the link after I'd stopped doing it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I trust the universe. There's a reason for everything. We had the call today, and I hear this such a line story that is quite fucking unbelievable. Um,
Unbelievable. Like, and I was just telling my fiance, I'm like, I have this call to Oliver literally coming up, and I get a phone call where someone's like, hey, I got $55,000 for you. It's man, it's a
and
beautiful
also,
thing.
right, it's another amazing lesson of, just because you hear a no doesn't mean it's the end. And I always say, unless
Mm,
it's sex,
mm,
never take no for an answer. You don't even hear that no.
mm,
You just you're blind, you're oblivious to it. You just go around it, and you go around it, and you go around it until you get a yes. Because in the
mm.
world, as you've just shown, there was 10 people before you saying no, but one banker said yes. It just takes one person with the ability to make what you want happen, to see something in you and make it
Yeah.
happen. But if you stop at the first no, you never got to that person, because
Yep.
not going not going around these no's eventually got you to there, which you would have never have even got there. And that's like step 8. Step 1 was the
Yeah.
first card saying no. Step 8 was the banker. So you got to go through 7 no's to get to that
Yeah.
one yes. And most people don't even go past the first no. So the
It's so
beauty
true.
of respecting that no, hearing the no, but moving forward and doing it again. Um, it's how anyone in life has succeeded. They've never heard the no. They've been obsessed with the end goal. They've trusted the magic of the universe,
Hmm.
and it always pays off. And they know from experience that it always pays off. And sometimes just setting it and forgetting it is the secret ingredient to making that finally happen. And I think your your phone's cut out, or your laptop's died or something, because I can't see you or hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yep. I can't see you though.
All right. Hold on. Let me try to
Hey, he's
fix
come from
this.
another camera. There we
There
are.
we go. All
There we
right.
are.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't agree more with you. Like it, like I was so frustrated when I had this fraud alert turned on that was causing all these issues, you know. And then here's the thing. I truly believe that if I had not had that alert on that was causing all of these applications to fail and get rejected, this wouldn't have gotten approved. I believe that, and even my banker was shocked because he's like, I'm pretty sure it was just like because everything was like stuck, they basically just approved it twice. They like doubled it of what they were originally going to do because everything got stuck. And then I ended up emailing like this really high up corporate office at the bank because I was so frustrated about everything going, like nothing working right. And I think it just, everything, the delay was actually designed to serve, right? The no's and the rejections were actually what was needed to get me what I initially set out in my intention. Because my initial intention was, if I can get $100,000, I can buy 20 cars. That's what I want. That's what I initially said I wanted to do. And so because that's what I told the universe I wanted, it's like, well, the only way I can make that happen is now I'm going to have to get this to not happen. And then this is going to happen. And then through this crazy weave, I don't know how many people got involved in this, how many different departments, because it took so long. It was so like disconjointed, but it literally gave me exactly what I asked for, plus 10% on top. And it's like, if I had have gotten stuck in the middle and just been like, you know what, forget this, like, I'm just not going to do this because it didn't work out and I forgot it, it wouldn't have happened. But what was actually, it all was working out in my good. But through that, and I think Abraham Hicks puts it very well, she calls it contrast. Through the contrast, even though it felt like it's not working, there's all this contrast, the contrast was actually the sign that was all working. But you don't know that until you get on the other side of it. And I think that the more that happens to me, and that happened to me so often as I was building our previous business, Flipstick, it happened all the time in the early stages. And it got to a point where it was just stressful and it wasn't that synchronicity anymore. And I think it kind of just goes to show you, like, when you're on the right path, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, things happen. And sometimes you're on the right path and then it's time for you to take a different path. That's why I love what you shared about being with your parents and thinking about moving to the country. It's like, yeah, when you were with your parents, you were supposed to be there. But then it got to the point where you realize, like, okay, that was my path, but it's no longer the path. Now there's a new path that I'm supposed to take. And I think that it's very easy for us to get caught. We get no's and then we get yeses and then things start working out. And we think like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then when it doesn't start working out and then it's like pushing us away, we're like, okay, well, now I'm going to start fighting the universe. When the universe is like, hey, look, this was for you, but now I got something new for you. And I need you to start moving on to the something new. And when you start to move over to something new, the same way I made all of these things happen for you before, I'm going to make all these things happen for you again. And now I've just learned, I feel like I'm a better listener now, to that.
Yeah. So, something very important to take away from this is be very stubborn with getting exactly what you want. Now, growing up, I've always been told I'm a pain in the ass because I ask for something. I want a blue jacket with green buttons and a collar. And so someone finds the blue jacket with green buttons without a collar. And I say, thank you so much for that, but that's not what I asked for. And I will go on and on and on until I get exactly what I visioned and I wanted. Otherwise, I would have asked for that, a jacket, blue buttons and no collar. And so having this precise thing in your mind, 100 grand, not 75, not 55. No, I've got 55. That's fucking lovely. I asked for 100, bitch. Now find me 100. And not giving up until you get that is how manifestation really, really, really works. Holding on until the very end, even though you kind of have already gotten most of it and you should be grateful. No, holding on to exactly what you want, whether it's a life partner and actually I wanted somebody like this, the other person was like this and they were brilliant, better than the one before, for example, but I wanted somebody specifically like this. Hold on for the exact thing that you want. And another thing that you said, once you've done this a few times where an obstacle is just a diversion and not an obstacle. You created this momentum of really getting what you want, emailing the management who may have clicked a few buttons, which without that frustration, you would have just applied at the bottom and not gotten anywhere. And you would have gone to the next company, applied at the bottom and not gotten anywhere. But because you were so frustrated with this, you emailed senior management, which actually might have been the person to go, yeah, it's fine, we'll just give them it. Okay. So every obstacle is a diversion, even though it seems like the universe is trying to stop you from getting what you want. It's almost like you think that the food is down that path and it's actually down that path.
Yep.
So there's an obstacle in the way. And rather than going, what the fuck, and moving down the obstacle, no, recognize that every obstacle is a diversion every single time and really let go of control, which is this is a diversion. There is no doubt about it. I'm going to get what I want in the end, but I have to be diverted because I can't see what's down that road. I just know that there's something happening and I need to go here. And when you hear this over and over and over again, do you realize that this is how the universe works? Every obstacle is a diversion. It is not a blockage of getting exactly what you want. And you will always get what you want if you keep flowing around the obstacle and trusting that at the end of that path is the gold, is the 100 grand plus 10%.
And you know what? It's so true. Like, because I think you talk about the flow, right? And when you look at a river doesn't flow in a straight line from the top of the mountain to the ocean. That's not how rivers work. They're always weaving in and out of obstacles. And that's how it works. But imagine what would happen if a river just said, well, there's this big mountain in the way. And rather than carving my way around the mountain, I'm just going to stop and form a lake. And it's just, it's over. You know, there's nothing to be done. That's it. But that's not how things work. You know, that's just not how a river works. A river is going to carve its way, even if it has to carve a Grand Canyon sized path to get to the ocean, is going to just weave its way through. And I think for a lot of us in life, unfortunately, we start weaving and then we get to that obstacle and we just stop and say, oh,
Well, my lake.
This is the stopping point. And we stop flowing around the obstacles to get to the end goal. We just say, it's like, well, we know there's an end goal. We just don't, like you said, we don't know how to get in. We think because there's an obstacle here, a big, giant obstacle, that it's not meant for us, or we can't get there. We can't do it. And like you said, it's a diversion. It's just saying, hey, flow this way a little bit. This is the way you're supposed to go, because that's not what you want. Isn't even over there. You thought it was, but it's not. It's over here. If you just go that way, you'll get to where you're trying to go.
If you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
If I had one day left to live, screw it, let's do it.
And is there anything you want to promote or plug before we finish?
You know, I don't really have anything I want to promote or plug. I mean, if people want to follow this new journey that I'm on, they can follow me on social media, which is at Akeem Shannon across all social media channels. But no, I just wanted to share that story. I remember after I did the last time we spoke, a listener just reached out to me about what it meant to them. And so I think for me, just coming on here and sharing that story, it's because it's so raw and it's so new. Like I have a lot of speaking engagements booked this year. This is a story that I haven't even shared, like, you know, to an audience yet. And I think that coming here, the right person will hear it. And that's probably why it was meant for us to do this podcast now and not do it a month ago, because it'll help, you know, whoever it's meant to help take that step and flow around that obstacle that may be in front of them right now.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.